And we're back.
And we're back.
Just like that.
Just like that after 3 months.
Is that how long it's been?
3 months, I think. Yeah,
yeah.
3 months. 3 months.
We've had a little break, haven't we? Because, certain things have been happening in our personal lives, in our community as well.
Yeah, I know. We've felt like we needed to take a little break and we couldn't have just carried on without, talking about specific things. So, yeah, but we're back now. We're fresh and we're ready to talk some topics.
Talk some topics.
About all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of stuff. I think we've been having a bit of a discussion about what do we come back with. We wanted to have a little refresh and a little reset. And we were like, well, what's more obvious to come back with than just actually what's been going on and general life? Because life happens, and I think there's certain things that are quite difficult that people don't really talk about. So we thought, why not start with that?
Yeah, life and like being 30. I don't know, 30s seem to be such a
dirty 30 word.
Honestly, it's become this like midlife crisis, the new midlife crisis. I feel like when you turn 30, everyone panics. I don't know, that's what I've noticed through our friends and people that we know. It's not the 40 and the 50s anymore. It seems that 30s is a really important point in everyone's life at the moment. So I thought it's a really important subject to approach, really. How do we deal with being 30 and how different life is from that jump from 20 to 30, responsibilities, feeling like you have to have your shit together and everything sorted, which is not the case.
I think there's so much that goes into this though, and I think it's transition, isn't it? It can happen at any kind of life stage. But I feel when you're in your 20s, you're on this kind of hamster wheel of I've got to get a career and I've got to get a partner and I've got to get a job, and you've got all of these goals that you're aiming towards. And I feel, by the time you get to 30, there's this transition of actually you've accomplished those things or you actually haven't, and everybody else around you seemingly has. And then all of a sudden it's okay, well, what now? I either had this kind of plan in place and I've kind of done it and it's not really what I felt like it was going to be, or I actually haven't achieved that, and what am I doing now? And I think that's where the oh god
I know it's a funny one, I think, because if you think about it, 30 is still very, very young, and there's no reason why you should be panicking at that age if you've not reached whatever goal you've set for yourself, like maybe having children or being married or having the career that you've always dreamed about. I think the pressure, it's not coming necessarily from yourself. I think it's the society that we live in at the moment and social media, and you see all these trends and TikToks and everything saying, yeah, by 30 you need to do this and you need to have that, and if you've not done that then you've not quite got your shit together. And I think it just puts a lot of pressure on people because talking to our parents, they've never ever mentioned to us by 30 you have to have all these things lined up for yourself. I think it's just changed in the recent years. And it's not, I don't think it's healthy for a lot of people. I think it puts a lot of pressure and it affects everyone's mental health in one way or the other. Like,
yeah, you know what, I've got this kind of thought process around this, because if you think of kind of our age group now, we didn't grow up with social media. So people in the 20s are a little bit different because they did. So when you have social media around you, not only are you exposed to kind of lots of different pressures, but you're also exposed to a big wider world. Whereas when we were growing up, you're only kind of exposed to what's around you. So whether that's your family values or any biases that you or your family or society around you has, which means that your world is quite small, really, and intricate, because nowadays you've got a window into a big wide world of opportunity. So you suddenly see actually women doing lots of other different things,
Yeah.
women who have got amazing careers, or women who go traveling or move cities or move countries, or who have different partners who maybe haven't had the traditional route of having children. And I think that can leave you feeling, particularly if you've been in an environment where, well, it's just the norm that you get a partner and you get married and you have children, or you don't go to work, or you do go to work and try and have it all. Suddenly, you've not got that glass ceiling above you anymore. You can understand that that can be broken, and it can leave you almost feeling, well, actually, I've missed out a little bit because now I've got what I've got, or I haven't achieved it. And where do I go from here?
Yeah, and I also that plays into, well, I felt when I've had my children really young. Well, my first, I had a really young. It was a completely different scenario in my life to when I had my second. So when I had my second, I was 28. So I felt like I knew more what I was doing, and I was kind of preparing myself for what is coming, basically. But I also felt that when I was reaching the 28, 29 mark, that I felt a bit lost because I didn't know, well, what now? I feel like everyone is trying to do career, be a mother, stay at home, do this, like just too much. There was too much on the plate to understand, where am I meant to be? Am I meant to be at home with the children? Am I meant to be off at work? And you have that gap, maybe late 20s, where you just feel like, oh, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. I thought that I was meant to stay at home with the children and look after them. And then now, all of a sudden, the standards almost like have gone
Oh yeah, they
higher,
change.
and
Yeah.
they've changed. And now all of a sudden we all have to not only go to work and earn money, but look after our children as well, and do the housework, cook, clean, do everything, organize.
Go to the gym, look like you're perfect every day.
Yeah, like try and keep fit after you've had two children,
Yeah.
or more children, however many children you've had. But it's hard. I just feel like the pressure is built up more and more and more over years, to when, I was having a conversation with my mum about when she was young. It was none of that. There was
Yeah.
no such thing as, women are expected to go to work and earn money and look after the children at the same time. I just feel like the roles were more understood back then, of what you're meant to do or where you are in your life, and there was no confusion, not that middle, what do I do?
I think it stems down to kind of losing your purpose in life. And I think society can have those typical gender roles and expectations, but ultimately it's about how you as a person feel. And it may well be that you had, all grand ideas of, being a stay-at-home mum and looking after your children. And maybe if you did have your children young, like I had my children young, that's great for a while, but your children grow up, and all of a sudden, I think what you were kind of alluding to then is that time in your life where you go, oh, actually, what about me? What is my purpose here? What do I actually want out of life? And if that is, staying at home with the children, that's great, as long as you've got your purpose and you find kind of your meaning in life. I think where people struggle and where it comes into playing into affecting your mental health is when you've lost that. And you're thinking, I'm just coasting through life and I actually don't know where I'm going. I don't know what my goals or aspirations are. I don't even really know who I am anymore. And that is what we were talking about when we say sense of purpose. And your sense of purpose really is absolutely central to your overall well-being. If you don't have it, then really you don't have an identity. And I think that's the kind of bit in between that I guess we're playing into now.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it's that phase where maybe we should all kind of sit down and think, what do I want to do in life? What is my purpose? What do I enjoy doing? All of these little questions probably will help to well, to kind of have a better understanding of your thought process and where you want to go in life. If it's to stay at home with the children, you know, that's fine, or whatever that might be. But I always have had this like battle almost of I want to be there for my children, but at the same time I also want to do something for myself as a woman, you know, as an individual. So I'm not feeling like all my life is just revolving around children, which as mothers it is. I mean, our life is basically our children 24/7, let's face it. But I think after a certain age, when maybe the children have grown up a little bit, you feel like they've already got almost their little life where you can't quite be involved as much. And then I think that's when a lot of women, and I've noticed a lot of women in my life that seem to lose track of themselves and can, you know, struggle with depression, with a lot of anxiety. And it's a big thing at the moment. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because most women that I know are struggling with it.
Yeah.
And most women that we know are mothers. Well, more than half of them are. So we can relate to how they're feeling and at what stage in their life they are.
Yeah.
And I think back now and I just think, well, no, normally what you would do if you're really unhappy with your life, you'd have to sit down and see what do you not like about your life? And then kind of think, well, what can I change? Like you said, baby steps, you know, think of doing something that you are enjoying and see if that might be something that you want to do as a career or something that you enjoy on a daily basis to make you feel better. So your anxiety is not through the roof, basically. But I've got a little saying that I live by, and I kind of hate like saying stuff like that because I'm like, oh yeah, it's a saying. But normally when I look back at my life, what you're not changing, you're choosing. So you're kind of like, whatever I'm not changing in my life, I'm happy and I'm choosing it to be okay with it. Whether it's my diet or my sleep pattern or my relationship or a routine, any habits. I mean, we all have bad habits at some point. And I feel like that's almost on you to go back in yourself and think, well, if I'm not changing it, I'm choosing it. So I can't be angry with it. And I think that's where it all comes down to. I think we all need to be a little bit more aware of how we're feeling and how we talk to ourselves and have that little check-in now and then with yourself and see where you are.
I think it's all comes down to everything that you were saying then is acceptance, isn't it? It's accepting who you are, but then actually truly getting to know who you are. I mean, what we've just been talking about, that stage in life, that could come, you know, at any transition point. You know, people listening could be 40 and thinking, actually, I had my children a little bit later and I really feel like that now, or in their 50s when the children have flown the nest or anything. I think for us now, we can really relate to it because of, you know, everything that's happening. I think it's really important that you just start to recognize, okay, well, who am I really? What type of person am I? Because when you have been so wrapped up in looking after children or having a career, trying to do everything at once, I don't know about you, but you literally just coast through the days. You don't actually stop to think about, okay, well, what do I want in all of this? Am I actually happy? And what does make me happy? And I think that can be a really difficult place to start with because people just lose themselves and can feel so far removed from actually even knowing what they want or how they feel anymore. And, you know, I can definitely resonate with that. And I think it's a massive step to start to accept who you are as a person, without wanting to radically change yourself too much. And I think that's what comes, you know, when we're talking about 30s, that comes across the board as well, because I think that happens in friendship groups too. People notice such a huge shift in friendship groups and it can cause rifts where people say, you know, oh, you're not the same person anymore, or, you know, take certain things personally. And I just feel I've got to a place now myself where I just live and let live. And I think everybody is just busy with their own lives, and you should just really focus on being your own authentic self that truly kind of just focuses on where your path is and where you're going in life. And once you start putting the energy into that, you'll notice a lot of things changing around you.
Yeah, just picking up on what you said about friendship groups. I mean, of course, we're not the same person when you're 30 and you've had children, or even if you haven't had children, you will not be the same person that you were at 20 when you were out partying and just being young and reckless. It's just not the same anymore. And I think what I find that people find it hard to accept it, that they are maturing and they are changing, and there's different things in your own life that's more important than what you thought it's important when you were 20. But I personally think that that's kind of hard for people to accept. It really, really gets to them. And I've seen people who are like, oh my God, I was having so much fun in my 20s. Of course you are having fun in your 20s. You're meant to have fun in your 20s. In some instances, like both of us, we've had children in our 20s, which I think has forced us to mature much quicker. And again, that plays into what I've said earlier. I felt lost.
Yeah.
Because instead of living my 20s and doing what everyone else was doing and all my friends were doing, I felt like I had to mature. I had no choice. And then I kind of was like, shoved in the corner. I was like, well, that's it. You know, you need to now grow up overnight because you've got a little human being that you have to look after. And then over years, all of that, you know, anxiety and stress and everything builds up. And you do get to a point where you just think, oh my goodness, what is going on? And I think, like you said, we all have that point in our life. It could be at different ages, different stages for everyone. For me, was especially when I hit 30 or just before, after I had my second, that's when I thought, you know what? And it wasn't the fact that I had two children, because I did sit down and think about this. Was it because I've had two children and it's maybe a little bit too much for me because I've been used to for years and years and years just to have one child? And yeah, it is added stress. You know, there's two children that you have to worry about and constantly have to look after them. But it wasn't that. It was mainly I reached that point where I just thought, uh-oh, something's not right. I'm too anxious about everything. Even walking outside on a normal day, I just felt this horrendous like anxiety. And I'm not necessarily an anxious person normally. And I recognized all these little stages in my life. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I need to sit down and just kind of reevaluate what's happening in my life and what's actually changed in my life. And then, you know, then you tick all the boxes and you think, okay, well, I had another child. Okay, well, I'm reaching a stage in my life where, you know, I can't go out every weekend and party with my friends because I have to get up in the morning with the children.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Come on.
Before I forget, it's going into my head. Right. Do you feel more confident now, though, in your early 30s than you did in your early 20s or even late 20s?
As in, like, physically or like
just generally,
in
just
general?
in yourself?
100%.
Because I do. I'm just reflecting on what you're saying. I was the worst person turning 30, by the way. I think I literally hid under a rock. It was just like the worst point of
it was like, I'm not 30.
I was like, I am not 30. I'm still not 30. But anyway, but now I feel as though actually I feel so much better now than I did do when I was in my 20s. I feel in a much more better place, kind of career-wise, family-wise. I've spent the last couple of years really thinking about, okay, well, who am I? And, you know, one of the big things for me that I reflect back on that I've changed, I think the most, is I used to be such a yes person. And I used to kill myself to do things for other people or to go out or to kind of people please. And And I think the biggest change for me over the last couple of years is boundaries.
Yeah.
And when you're putting in place boundaries, it's not that you're being horrible or awkward to anybody else, but you're protecting your own peace. And that for me was such a massive pivot point where things started changing. And I thought, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Not that it's anything against you, but this is what I feel will help me or keep my peace, as I say.
Yeah. Well, I think we all need to learn to be a little bit more selfish. I mean, and not I'm talking selfish in a healthy way.
Self-care is not selfish.
Oh, definitely not. And I think now that you've asked me that question, I think I've just got that type of attitude that I just walk out the house and I just do not give a shit.
Yeah. Live and let live.
Literally.
Is my motto.
And I don't want to sound like I'm being like super superficial or like selfish, but I just genuinely don't care. If you think that I am this person, or if you think that whatever, like if I'm happy and everyone around me is happy, I'm happy.
But this feeds back into, and I am such a firm believer in, if you're judging somebody else or thinking in a negative way about somebody else, that is you projecting your own insecurities out there. You should be focusing your attention inwardly to really recognize where those patterns of thought are coming from and trying to reframe them in a much more positive way, because you can't sit there and think negatively and expect good things to happen to you. And I wanted to say this before, it's just come back to me now. This kind of picks up on the point of what you were saying about making a change. And if you don't make a change, then you have to accept that, that was the way you chose to live.
Yeah.
Because you can always change your circumstances. You can always choose to do better and be better. And it has to start with yourself. If you are feeling as though you're lost, you don't have a purpose anymore, I think a lot of the time it's a fear of the unknown. It can be safety in predictability, in comfort, in, well, I've always done it this way, or I've always lived this way, or I've always, stayed at home, or I've always been a career woman. What am I going to do if I give that up? You'd never know unless you try. And I think that's the scary part. But you have to make a jump and you have to make sacrifices in order to change or move away from your current circumstances.
Yeah, well, it's that constant battle between comfort, your comfort zone, and change. Of course, I'm going to want to stay where I am because I feel comfortable and I'm fine and I'm happy. But it's only when you don't feel happy in your comfort zone, that's when you think, because that's when it comes to, I think, because we all can just be sitting there and be like, yeah, everything's great. But are you happy though? Because if you're not happy in your comfort zone, then you have to change that. That comfort zone has to change. That means something's not right there. Maybe your subconscious is constantly thinking about something. Maybe you do want to go back to work, or maybe you want to have children. You've had a career life for your whole 20 and 30s or 40s, and all of a sudden, do you know what? I've changed my mind. I actually want to have children now. But I think a lot of people almost feel bad to go back on their word, saying, I've been saying all this time that I want to be a career woman, and now all of a sudden I feel like I want to have children. It's fine. You do whatever makes you happy. Don't worry about what anyone is saying. If we all lived genuinely with the fear of what the neighbor said or that person said, we won't have a life anymore. You genuinely wouldn't be able to live your true authentic self. And I think what I've been embracing in my 30s is who am I? Like, what do I enjoy doing? Like, how am I around the people that I'm really, really comfortable? Like, if I just want to, what we're like in reforming, like, because I know we bring up Pilates, but I am genuinely my authentic self in that studio. And for whoever knows me, they know that I don't put a front when I go in there. Like I just go there and I'm myself. I relax. I can genuinely just be myself and just chill and not worry about if somebody's looked at me funny and then all of a sudden I'm uptight. So I think it's really important that, you know, you build up your confidence to a point that you can walk outside the door and not feel that you have to look a certain way or you have to behave a certain way so you are accepted by the society or by your group of friends.
I always think though, but who makes up society rules? Like honestly, if you feel really pigeonholed into acting or behaving in a certain way, just ask yourself the question, who made those rules up? And I feel like this, particularly for our age group, is a massive kind of pivotal point because, like I said, we were never influenced by social media when we were younger. We just didn't have that. Okay, we had the TV, but it was still very much kind of traditional gender roles when we were still growing up. Whereas now women have a lot more opportunity, and we're getting to this point where we're thinking, okay, well, I've followed this path or I've followed this trajectory, and actually I want more now, or I'm feeling as though actually I could give more, you know, there's more to me. Who am I? You have to be willing to start to do the inner work, to start to recognize who you truly are before you can make a change. And I think, you know, coming back to what you were saying about maybe those thoughts that we all have, you know, I think that's the worst part of what really breaks a woman down, because we are so self-critical, and those little niggling thoughts that we say to ourselves, that we tell ourselves, you know, we all speak to ourselves in our heads. That's a really normal part of just being human. It's what those words are saying that is really important. If you've got a really negative inner critic, that is really going to impact your mental health quite severely. But you can change that inner critic, and we call it cognitive restructuring. But you have to actively challenge it. And, you know, we talk about an angel, don't we, or a devil on our shoulder. Your angel says one thing, the devil will say another. And it is as literal as that. If you find yourself looking in the mirror and saying, oh, you know, you're so useless, or you can't go out looking like that, or oh, you could never do something like that, you know, that's not you, or but actually deep down you want to make those changes, you have to actively stop those thoughts and challenge them, and almost have a bit of a mini argument with yourself to say, no, I can do those things, and I can become who I want to become. I can go out and, you know, do this particular job, or I can have that career, or I can make a change to my fitness. You just have to want to do it and then take action.
Yeah, definitely. I think looking back, it's so important. For example, for myself, I used to always go out and always say, like you said, people please and say yes to everything, even though I didn't feel like doing it. And it's a little bit of a tricky thing here though, because yes, get yourself out of your comfort zone. We always say that. I think that's really important, especially when you're not feeling that great, but knowing that you're going to go out with your friends is going to make you feel better, then yes, it's worth then pushing yourself to get out of your comfort zone. But when it's all the time and you're constantly going over everything and dropping everything in your life just because somebody said so, I think that's when that inner battle comes in. And you start being unhappy about certain things. And like, for example, at the moment, if my social battery dies, I go home. Or I literally just take myself out and just have a moment for myself. And it happens to me more often now than it used to when I was younger. Like at parties, for example, I'll just disappear for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you won't know I'm there. But I'll come back because I need that moment to recharge myself. I don't want to just be standing there and just be miserable and just be like, you know. But I think what I recognize that when it's happening, I know it's happening, I'm doing something about it. So I'm not leaving myself sitting in an uncomfortable situation. And it could be it doesn't have to be an argument or something bad happening. You're just literally sitting there and you just thought, I've had enough for a minute. Let me just go and have a breather. And it works every time when I just give myself that little break. And this can be applied into everything, even with work, even with exercise, diet. I've been eating healthy all week, but I feel like genuinely I need to have a little treat. Go and have that little treat. Don't just sit there and think that by you having that little bit of chocolate, you're going to feel so ashamed of yourself and terrible, because I think that's where balance comes into play. You can't do things constantly to extremes. I think you can carry on doing it to extremes to a certain point until you break, and then when you break really badly.
I don't know about that. I've gone to the extreme this week. I actually had ice cream for lunch yesterday.
Oh my God, that sounds like the best lunch ever.
I don't even eat ice cream, and I had a bowl of ice cream for lunch. And I've also ransacked the Halloween sweets.
Yeah. I've been eating all the Halloween sweets. The kids, they don't know where they are.
So this week I have had a awful week, but I've really felt it. I've felt sluggish. I've just felt tired. I've just felt ugh. But I know why. It's like you say, we all can have those dips. That's absolutely normal. It's more about being aware of when you do need to engage in self-care. And it's such an important topic. I think self-care, people write it off as this form of indulgence when it's not. It's like you said it perfectly with the social battery example. We've all got a social battery. We all have our own sensory systems which are responsive to the environment around us, and they're different for everybody. If you're not paying attention to what your body is telling you, you're gonna burn out. And it's the same whether you are in a really stressful job or if you're just constantly on the go looking after the family. You have to take some time for yourself, and we really appreciate that sometimes there's just not any time in the day, it feels like. But if you could just squeeze in half an hour for a bath, go read a book in the bath, or go just take a 20-minute walk on your own in some fresh air, it massively resets that social battery. And you know, the difference it makes can be massive in terms of it's all of the baby steps that add up to the bigger change.
I know. I think that's where people miss the point, because they think they have to make this big, massive change in order to feel more confident, or in order to feel more, I don't know, loved or anything. You can apply this to anything. And I think this is where the little trick is. You do genuinely have to take baby steps, and there's no other way around it. The more you try and change too much in one go, the more you probably will fail. And I hate using that word fail, because it's not really failure because you've tried, but it's you're putting yourself into an environment that it's not achievable too quickly, it's too much on you as a person. So I think for example, I'm going to put it very easy and straightforward: diet. If you've had a really unhealthy diet until now, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and have a 3-course, 3 meals a day that are going to be super healthy, because that is just going to give your body the shock of its life. You have to take things slowly and easy, and that's how you keep going, actually. And there's more chance of you succeeding in that if you do baby steps than if you dramatically change something overnight.
I'm just thinking as well, you're talking about food.
I'm talking about food, yeah.
I was thinking of applying the same analogy to your personality, because I was thinking then about, making changes and feeling in this rut and stuck in a rut, which is ultimately what we're talking about. I think as well, just going back to thinking about who you were when you were just genuinely carefree and happy, and trying to hold on to that element of your personality, because it's always there. That part of you hasn't been gone. And I think it's important, so even if you are in your 30s, that you keep that part of yourself. And it doesn't have to mean the crazy wild part of yourself. It doesn't have to mean, you know, that you're going out or anything like that. It could be that, you know, actually you were a really avid reader and that was the part of your time that you cherished. You know, you were really into your books but you don't have time to read them no more, and you've lost that side of yourself. Whatever it was, just find it. I mean, we all know what mine is.
Yeah.
But that's never going to go.
I know, that's never going
I was
away.
actually thinking, you know, does there come a point when it's forced upon you that you're not allowed to go there anymore?
No, I don't think that's possible. I think you're allowed to go there until your last day, your last breath.
Yeah, I will
basically.
take my last breath.
No, but I know what you mean. For me, is mainly being outdoor.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing was when I was little, I was always outdoor. I'm thinking back to what was Elise like when she was maybe before she was a teenager and before she became insecure about everything and moody about everything and all of the hormones and everything that changes. And my life really was very simple. I just wanted to be outside. I wanted to be surrounded by people that I enjoyed spending time with. I was actually quite a bit goofy as well. Like, I was a bit of the clown of the class. I've not lost that. But I that's how I genuinely was as a child. And I loved people. I loved being around people. And what I've noticed as I was getting older, I became such an introvert where I could not stand being around people.
Why do you think that was, though?
I have no idea where it all changed. What I can think about is changing where I lived and moving country, and that kind of just put myself into a bit of a shell. But I struggled with that for quite a good few years. Even after I've moved countries, I still struggled with it massively. And I think as I was building my confidence back up and I matured a bit more, I genuinely think that me having children at 22 kind of saved me in that way. And I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but for me personally, I think that since having children, I completely just kind of switched that. And I thought, well, slowly I'm coming back to who I used to be, like my authentic self. And now looking back, I think, no, do you know what? I'm really glad, because I've kind of dropped that, you know, not kind of like, not criticizing myself for every little thing that
like
I've been doing, and not, I've not done that right. And why can I not do this and all? And I just think, you know, life is too short to worry about all these. Of course, we all want to be organized and we all want to have our lives, you know, straight and organized. I'm saying it again because that's really important for myself personally. But sometimes I might not be organized, and so what? It's okay.
I'm just thinking, honestly, I was going to ask you what you wanted to be when you were older, and then I was reflecting on actually what did I want to be when I was older, and it started off this big kind of thought process for me, and I thought actually all I ever wanted to be was a psychologist. That's all I ever wanted to be, apart from a tennis player when I was about 12, but never mind, that was the phase
I think we all wanted to be a tennis player.
I can't remember who was out at the time, but never mind. And then I just thought, actually, it's only really in the last couple of years that I have truly made peace with actually getting off that trajectory, can't even say it,
that one.
of, you know what I mean, of life, because I just had put so much expectation on myself of, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to go. And I'm going to reach this by this age. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to have this house. And honestly, that was my 20s, was just exhausting of constantly trying to achieve all of these really, really high goals and expectations that I'd set for myself, and being really critical if I hadn't achieved them. And I think, yes, you get to 30 and feel a failure if you haven't achieved them. But then I also got to that point where I was like, okay, well, what now?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, what happens now? Because you've been steamrolling towards this particular point, and it can be anything. And then all of a sudden you think, well, I've kind of achieved what I thought I wanted, and actually I'm not fulfilled. And not that I'm not happy, because you can have quite, a nice, happy life. It's just you don't feel fulfilled. And I think that for me is that kind of thing that you just can't quite put your finger on. It just leaves you feeling a little bit empty, unsure, uncertain. And I think it really throws you off track, because you think, oh, well, this is not how I imagined it to be. Where do I go now?
Yeah, it's hard, that, isn't it? Because it's you kind of then sit down and judge yourself a little bit, and you think, oh God, this and that, and you, like you said, you've worked so hard to that point that you've always dreamt about, and then you reach that goal, and then you think, like you said, what now? And I think that it's with anything. I feel like you constantly have to be flexible in your life, in a way of, okay, so I've reached this goal now, but I'm not now going to be like, oh my God, what do I do? I can start something else that I enjoy. And it doesn't have to be another big, massive career. It can just be something else that you not done for a very long time, or you enjoy. It can be just something like a hobby on the side. And that will take all of that overthinking from maybe the career side, where you think, well, I've reached the point that I've always wanted to reach, and now I just kind of feel a little bit unhappy. And I think you just have to recognize all these little things, that when you set goals, you will eventually achieve them. Maybe might not be as quick as you thought you will, but then you have to also be okay that when you've achieved them, it doesn't have to be this big, massive thing that you have to do next. If you are happy with your career and you enjoy what you're doing, then carry on doing that, and maybe find something on the side that you enjoy doing that's not going to completely take over your life. Because I think that's what a lot of people do now. They're all of a sudden think, oh, I've reached this goal, or let me start another business, let me start this, and then they just overwhelm themselves with too much going on, to the point that then they get stressed, and then they fall into depression most of the times.
I think you're spot on there with what you've just said. I think you have to be okay with something different and being flexible. And I feel that is massively the point where I actually sat up and thought, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm actually okay with not potentially staying on the path that I'd always thought I'd be on, and maybe following a different path, or your life takes different turns, is absolutely okay. And I think the difference is that you plan your life out for the rest of your life, and people see that point as a huge journey, when realistically, like you say, if you want to kind of prevent mental ill health, you have to break it down into much smaller chunks. Life is a journey of lots of different roads with twists and turns. You have to be flexible. It will change quite often, probably frequently, and you have to be willing to adapt and be okay with that, and think, okay, well, maybe let's, focus on something else. And that's the difference between a growth and a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
I think people with a fixed mindset is where you start to struggle with the depression, the anxiety, the loss of that control in life. Whereas if you kind of switch it and have this growth mindset where you embrace change and you see failure as, a challenge that you've overcome, that is the difference between positive and poor well-being.
Yeah, well, I can think back, when people say, when you're about to give birth and you plan your birth, basically how it's going to go, your labor and everything, and you pack all of these things, and you overwhelm yourself. Think of your life like that. Okay, you can plan it and you can do all these steps. Nobody's saying you can't do them, but be okay that it might change in that
Well, my two
time.
came 6 weeks early. I had no time to plan.
So see, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they all say to you, "Oh, don't worry about it. You know, don't over plan it because it never goes to plan." Well, why are we not? Why are we not applying that to our lives? You know, it's as simple as that. It might not go to plan. It might not, but you need to be okay with it. It's gonna get you there eventually where you want to be, but it might not get you there as you planned it. It might have got you onto maybe the windier road where you had to step over obstacles and things like that, and things came into your life with that you didn't expect, and you had to pause that and put that to the side and maybe focus on something else. And I think that's where you've mentioned people get stuck when things don't go to plan and they genuinely don't know what to do next and they panic. And in most cases, depression comes in and they don't feel like they've done good enough, or, you know, and all of these little issues. I just think that when you have a goal, but don't be too rigid about it. Make sure that you give yourself time to have those different routes in life where you still can enjoy yourself, but still get to the destination that you've always wanted to be. I think you'll save yourself a lot of, you know, stress and trouble.
There's lots of kinds of tips and techniques that we can talk about, you know, that support a growth mindset and support that flexibility as opposed to that rigid thought process. And we can absolutely, I'm excited to explore that in so much more detail. I think to end today though, I want to ask you a question, and I'm putting you on the spot again.
Okay.
I'm full of it today, aren't I?
I know, you just want to ask me questions.
So, what is one piece of advice you would give your 20-something self, knowing what you know now in all your 30s wisdom?
Don't take life too seriously. Genuinely don't.
Oh, that's a good one.
Just don't, honestly, because I used to be so just thinking about everything so much, and now that I'm looking back, I laugh at myself. I genuinely sit back, and you know, when you just like look at yourself and think, oh my God, why was I worried about everything into detail though? I was very detailed about my worrying and my overthinking, because there's overthinkers and then there's overthinkers, which I was in that category where I just thought, oh my God, there was an absolute shambles in my head at that point. And I think that's the only thing that I can say to my younger self is don't take life too seriously, but at the same time, enjoy yourself more and just be you, and don't care whatever. If you want to laugh at me, great. But that's it. If I'm being my authentic self, then I'm being myself. So that's all that matters, really. Be yourself, guys, please. Please. Yeah. Don't just put a front for the sake of the audience or what's happening in the background. So just be yourself.
My one would be, I think I've got a couple, but if I was to choose one, if I was to choose one, I would definitely say pause and reflect before you react. I was such a big reactor, and you know what? I can actually reflect on where it all stems from. I think, you know, you massively look back at your childhood, your patterns growing up, your experiences make you who you are, but they don't define you. And you are not controlled by your emotions. You can always manage your emotions, and it's the biggest skill, in my opinion, anybody can have. If you learn to manage your emotions, you'll be a lot better and more successful person.
I agree. 100% agree, because I can be a pot of fire. Like literally I can bubble and explode any minute. And I just, then you mentioning this 2 days ago, this happened. It's very raw. I was in the car. The children were screaming. We're all rushing. We're really late. I've not had breakfast. I've just had a sip of coffee. I didn't sleep very well the night before. Can you imagine? Just put that scenario in your head.
I'm thinking of that meme that you sent me of those annoying noises. Yeah. Is that what it was?
Everyone was screaming in the car. One wanted the window down. One didn't want the window down. Everyone, breakfast flying everywhere because we didn't have time to eat breakfast.
What goes on with these kids?
Yeah, I know. And at that point, I nearly lost it to the point that I genuinely wanted to stop the car and get out and just walk away. No, but seriously, I've envisioned myself
He's
doing
been
that. And I literally just turned around to the other side and I just breathed. But I did it in such a way that you thought that I am in some sort of deep meditation.
Yeah.
And I just did that, and everyone started laughing in the car because they've clocked onto it. The fact that I literally got to myself in such a state that I had to do that deep breath to calm down because I couldn't.
How proud of yourself were you though?
And I
afterwards?
just thought, you know what? Great, because I could have absolutely annihilated
Gone to town on all
everyone
of
in
you.
that car. And I could have ruined everyone's day, but I didn't. So I just felt really, really proud of myself. So you saying that, it actually, I can relate to that because I think we all can react out of character most of the times when we're younger. I mean, you can do it still when you're older, but I just think the more that you can sit, relax, reflect to what's happening and just try not to have a reaction.
But it also puts you in a more powerful position. Not that the idea is to gain power over other people. That's not what I mean. I mean, it puts you in a powerful position because then you have got a choice over what you do next. And then your actions are controllable. So yeah, that would be my one.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's really good. But yeah, guys, I think this is it. And we'll try now to be back every single week.
We will.
We're going to be really, really like strict with ourselves.
And we're going to be more on to talking, I think, just about real life in general and about what we're all going through. So if you've got anything that you would like us to cover, particular topics, we've still got a few in the bank from last time. We've got a few messages that we didn't get around to. So we apologize about that, but we are going to be picking back up on topics. I think just as normal, we just had a little bit of a breather where we were like, okay, where is this going? Where do we want it to go? But I think we're on track again now, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think maybe another thing to think about is what was that point in your life where you thought it all changed for you? I think we would like to hear about that because it can be different for everyone and it can help like a much wider, range of people and not, because obviously our experience is our experience, but we'd like to hear what you've been through and how it affected your life and how it changed your life, basically.
And if you have any tips for your past 20-year-old self, then we'd love to hear from those as well.
Yes, I'd love to hear that actually. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.